Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, November 29th of 2016, and I'm glad to have so many of you. It looks like we have about 26 of you out that have joined us online for our 27 now for our Google Classroom Technology Tuesday webinar. So we're glad to have you. I'm Mark Oakton. I'm going to let Kirsten and Julie introduce themselves really fast so you know who they are.
Thanks, Mark. I'm Kirsten Boschnagel, and I'm currently a technology teacher at Kenny Gwynn STEM Academy.
Hi, I'm Julie Jones, and I'm currently a digital coach at Thorpe Elementary School.
All right, thank you, Kirsten and Julie. I'm grateful for them for that they've been able to take some time to join us today to share some of their knowledge and expertise with everybody. Now we are working in Google Classroom today and talking about Google Classroom. So we want this to be a little bit interactive. We would like you to actually go ahead and join our Google Classroom right now for the webinar. If you open up a browser window and you go to the URL that you see there, it's simply classroom.google.com. You'll be prompted to join us. Actually, to start off, if this is your first time using Google Classroom, please choose that you are a teacher. Even if you're signing up to be a student in somebody else's class, you are still a teacher. And then you will choose the class code. You'll put select the plus sign at the top right hand corner and click on Join Class. And you will join our class using that code W108SC. We're going to give you a few minutes to join right now. Okay, it looks like we have most of you in there right now. We've got about 21 of you in there, so we're missing a few still. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kirsten, who's going to do an app share and talk a little bit about what we can do inside Google Classroom.
Thank you very much, Mark. We're going to just look through this for a second and see where you are. In Google Classroom, when you first start, when you joined our class, you hit that plus sign and you have your join code where you can join other people's classes. If you don't see a create button, that means that you're not part of the CCSD Classroom Teachers group. You need to be in that group in order to be able to create your own classes. So in order to do that, you'll have to make sure that you go to groups.google.com, log into your account, and you'll be adding yourself to this Classroom Teachers group. So if you follow the directions that are in here, it will get you all set so that you'll be able to create your own classes. So that is one of the first things that you'll have to do. It's very frustrating if you can't see that you can create a class. So we are going to start with an app share. We're going to go into Google Classroom and we're going to learn about creating a class and adding some things to that. Okay, so in our Google Classroom that you guys just joined, we have different things in here. We have our stream, which is, if you've used Edmodo before, it's similar to Edmodo, where you have all of your information. We have students and we have about. In order to create your first class, when you log into Google Classroom for the first time, you end up on a desktop like this where you have either classes you've joined or it's empty if you've never either joined or created a class. Just like anything in Google, whenever you want to create something new, they put a handy dandy plus sign for you. I'm going to click the plus sign and I have the option to either join a class or create a class. When I go to create a class, it allows me to name the class. I can add a section, so if I have different class periods, I can put that in there, and a subject as well. I'm going to click create. And now from here you can see that I've created a class. It's really nice because I can select different themes, so I don't have to have this red background, and I can kind of customize it to make it more useful. Sometimes you can find different things that represent what you teach. So, for example, if I taught science, something like this would be a fun background to have. Excuse me for a second. So when I get in here, it gives me information about adding to my stream. And again, my stream is the place where I add all of my information, my assignments, my announcements. My next tab over is my students, and this is where I can go to find the join code to give my students. So I can invite my students in different ways. The first way is simply to have them log on to classroom.google.com with their CCSD Google account and enter this class code, ONLZ5SC, and then my students will be a part of my class. I also can email my students, but I need to have them as contacts, or I need to search for each student individually. I prefer to give my students the class code. It seems to work a lot faster. And they've now offered, this is new, where you can have guardians receive email summaries of their students' work in Google Classroom. So you can have that as well. Your About page, this is also something that's really a wonderful place where you can add things that your students are going to need all the time. So for instance, I can add a class description, I can put where it meets. It gives me where my stuff, or where my files are all being saved, because what's really wonderful, one of the wonderful things about Google Classroom is that for every class I create, it makes a new folder, which is named that class, in my Google Drive. So if I go into Google Drive, I have a folder called Classroom. Sorry, it's a little. And inside of here are all the different classes that I either have been a part of or I have created. And you can see here is the one I just created, the practice class. And so it puts all of my information in there. I also have a calendar that I can look at right in Google Classroom, or what's another nice feature is that all of the activities, announcements, and things that I put into Google Classroom will sync to my Google Calendar. Again, love that. It's wonderful. Underneath that, we have Add Class Materials. This is where I can add things like a class syllabus, something they might need throughout the year, or my rules and my procedures. I can attach those things. I can either use the paperclip to attach something from my computer, the hard drive itself. I can choose something from Google Drive that I've used. I can use a YouTube video. Again, I use that with my students sometimes. If there's a video that we use often, I'll put that in here. And then links, different links. I have links to things like Pear Deck and Quizlet that I keep in here so that I don't have to always post that in my stream. The students know to go to the About page, and then they have a link that gets them where I need them to be very, very quickly. So on this page as well, I have where my students can email me. The students see that right here when they go on this page. They just click where it has my email address or the little envelope, and they're able to email me directly to Gmail. So that's something nice for them. I have students sometimes who contact me in the evenings or if they're having problems with work they're doing, and this is a quick way for them to get to me. And then I also can invite other teachers to be co-teachers with me. So if I have special education students and I'm co-teaching with a special education teacher, I would most likely invite that teacher to be a co-teacher on this class with me. That way they can post things, they can look over stuff and add things as well. Very, very helpful. And if you look at our class that we have, you can see up at the top that Mark's there, I'm here, and Julie's here as well. We are all co-teachers in our class. So if I look on the About page, you'll see us all on the left-hand side. and you will see that you can email us directly just by clicking on the link. And then it's wonderful. Mark has added some great things, some great resources. Here's the presentation for you guys that we're going over, and then other resources that you might need. So you can see how these are places to keep information that students may need over and over again. Now, I'm going to go back to the stream. I'm going to talk a little bit about announcements, and then I'm going to hand it off to Julie. So again, your stream is the place where you put all of your information. It's a running list, so it's always going to be very, very important to have some sort of naming convention. And in fact, you can see Mark has put that in there for us, that his assignment here is 007, or his question, excuse me. And if I scroll down to the bottom, he's got 001, welcome to our class, 002. Again, it's just an easy way to search your materials when you're adding things to Google Classroom, because the stream can get long throughout the year. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is adding an announcement. And again, if you look around this page, what you're going to see is a plus sign, and that's just like everything else. That's where you can add things. Creating an announcement is a wonderful way to put information out there for students, just to get them to remember something. If there's a field trip, you have an upcoming test, you'd like to say happy birthday to one of the students, it's a great place to put that. Or you have a quick link you're going to add for a lesson that you're doing today. It doesn't need to be anything important, but you want them to get to that link quickly. So I mouse over the plus sign, and then I move up to where it says create announcement. And I'm going to click on that. And from here, I can type what I would like to put in as my announcement. And I'm just going to write happy birthday, because I'm one-handed typing right now. And then I am going to assign it to different classes, because a great feature is that with anything that I'm adding to the stream, things like questions and assignments and announcements, I can add it to more than one class at the same exact time. So if I click up here where it says 4, right now the default is the class I'm in. I click on the little down arrow, and I can choose, here's that practice class we just made, and I will put it in with another class that I have. That way I can do it all at once. And again, the same way that in my About page when I was adding resources, I can still upload files, add things from Google Drive, YouTube videos, and links as well if I need those. It saves automatically for me, so it makes a draft of it if I haven't posted it yet. And then I have my garbage can if I really am like, oops, that was wrong, I'm going to throw that out. Now I can just click post and it'll show up right in my stream, but if you notice there's a little down arrow next to the word post as well. Whenever you see a down arrow, in most things, especially Google, if you click on it, there's always going to be other choices. I can post or I can save this as a draft. Notice that the word schedule is here, but it's grayed out just a little bit, and if I mouse over it says post can be scheduled for only one class at a time. So that lets me know that if I take away my other classes, now schedule is here. That way I can kind of make sure that this post shows up when I want it to. Personally, I use this scheduling more with assignments and questions, since I have different periods of the same class. I schedule my assignments to show up in the class about the time class starts, because some of my kids they poke around Google Classroom before their class if they're using it in with their science teacher or English teacher. So sometimes they're poking around in what we're doing, and I don't necessarily want them to get into that assignment just yet without any instructions from me. So that's when I'll use something like scheduling an assignment. So I'm just going to post this, and you're going to see that it now shows up at the top of your stream. What I tell my students, sometimes they go, "It didn't show up, Mrs. Boschnagel." I let them know that there might be a message up at their top of their screen that says the stream has been updated. Click show. Or I just have them refresh their page. Either way, then the stream is now current and they can see what is there. last thing I'm going to say about this with the announcements, and this will be similar to other activities that you add to your stream, there are 3 dots on the side now of my announcement that I just put. If I click on those, again, that's similar to that down arrow. These 3 dots mean there's more I can do. I'm going to click on it. I can edit what I put in here. So if I spelled something wrong, I can fix it. I can delete it, or I can copy a link to this and send the students the link. I'm going to delete this because I don't have anybody to say happy birthday to. But if it is your birthday, happy birthday. So I'll delete that post. It'll confirm with me that I want to do that, and then it will be gone. So that is what you can do as a teacher. Students cannot delete posts. They cannot do anything with that. And I did not mention, but your students, come on. Oh, now it's being fickle. There we go. When I'm on here with my students, you can see here all of you who've joined. Yay! Over here right now it says students can post and comment. I generally speaking make it so that only teachers can post or comment because that kind of avoids a lot of things with my students. If I have a need for my students to comment on something, I turn commenting on when I need it, and then after we're finished, I turn it back off. Saves me a lot of headaches with the students. So I hope that is helpful. I'm going to give up my app share and hand it over to Julie.
I'm going to jump in here for a minute first. Let me do an app share myself. Because we do have some interactive elements, I would like each of you to go into post number 2 and notice when you post in Google Classroom, the newest post goes up on the top. And so I numbered them, the posts that I put in here, to help us keep track. That 001 was first, and throughout a semester or a year, you're going to get several hundred posts. There's a good chance that will happen. One thing before I turn it back over to Julie, we talked about the Students tab in here, and this is a fairly new feature in Google Classroom. One of the questions that we had, as a lot of teachers used Edmodo before, and that gave you the opportunity to share with parents, and for a long time Classroom did not give that opportunity. Well, you can now invite guardians or parents for any of your students. And so I'm going to just click on, let me see, who do I want to pick on? I'll pick on Dr. Welsh. Okay. All I have to do is when I click on invite guardians, type in Dr. Welsh's parents' email address, which I've obtained from a conversation with them. And as many email addresses as I have, I can invite them through that, and that will give them access to exactly what Dr. Welsh does in my Google Classroom, but they won't be able to see anything from any other students. So I can email the student, I can email the parents, and that ability to do that is a pretty new feature in Google Classroom. All right, Julie, you're up.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, so we're going to go on to creating an assignment. And I'm also going to do an app share. So one of the nice things about Google Classroom is being able to create an assignment. Anytime I want to create something new, I simply go over here to the plus sign. That's the same place that Kirsten went to create that announcement, except I would go ahead and choose create an assignment. So once I choose creating an assignment, I get a pop-up box. And the same thing that Kirsten had, I can click on this down arrow and I can choose to put it in other classes that I currently have. I would go ahead and give this a title. If you have instructions that you want them to follow, this is a great place to put it. And then you can choose a due date and time. I usually just do a date. I don't go as specific as having a particular time that I want people to have their assignment done. That's optional. And then a new feature is that you can add a topic to it. So if this topic was on regrouping, whoops, it'd be nice if I spelled it correctly, then I can have all of those things with regrouping together. And the same as when you have an announcement, if you want to attach a Word document, a PDF, you would just click on the attach bar right here. If there's something in your drive that you want to attach to it, you would click on the little triangle for the drive. This is the symbol for the YouTube video, or if you have a link that you want them to go to, you would go there. Also the same, and one of the things I love is that I can schedule my assignments. So if I do my planning and I'm done with my planning Thursday or Friday, and I want to schedule each of my assignments for each day, I can do that, or I can save it as a draft. But I love that feature. Or I could assign it right now, and then it will show up in the stream right away. But like Kirsten said, you want to be cautious of that, just to make sure if kids are on it at in other classes, and you don't want them to have access to it until you're ready to share it with them. So we'll go ahead and assign, and it pops up right there. If I want to edit it, those three dots are right there. Again, I can edit it, I can delete it, or I can copy the link. Once I go to editing, I no longer have the option to schedule it. So the only way I'd be able to schedule it for a later date is to just go ahead and delete the whole assignment. So really nice feature. As things get turned in, you are able to grade them right there on the fly. And we'll show that with one of the other ones. The other feature I absolutely love. I love it for exit tickets. I love it for if you have classrooms set up for maybe literature circles. Starting discussions is creating a question. So with creating a question, you would type your question right here. So whatever the topic is, so what are your favorite features in Google? Instructions are optional if you have something additional that you want them to do. Again, choosing a due date. So this is really very similar to an assignment. Time, again, I leave that. Topic, if you wanted it to be a part of a topic. So we've got regrouping or webinar or no topic. And then choosing if it's short answer or multiple choice. I usually leave that short answer, but that again is up to you. And then you can choose whether or not students are able to reply to each other. So it might be something that you just want them to post an answer to. You can also choose whether or not students can edit an answer. The reason I love this feature is because once you go to ask it, students cannot see each other's answers until they reply themselves. So if you're asking me about a chapter that I was supposed to read, and I'm supposed to be answering what the character did in that chapter, I would have to post my answer before I see anyone else's answer. So that's a real nice feature, that they're not able to see each other's answers and then kind of borrow what somebody else said. So I'm going to delete that. And so you'll notice that there are different icons as things are posted in the stream. Mark has a question posted. He has an assignment posted. There's another question. So if we wanted to go through There's 31 done. As the teacher, notice over here on the left side, we could go ahead and grade these right within Classroom. You would still need to record those grades into Infinite Campus, but you can let students know how they're doing. And everybody's, there's 100 points that were available on this, and I could just key in people's grades as I'm going through the stream to see who has answered and who has not. Okay, so another thing that you can do is reuse posts as you are wanting to. So let's give this a second. If I go to the plus, I can go again and I can choose to reuse a post. And it gives me all of the posts that I have put into any of my classrooms. So if I wanted to reuse this post, I could select it and it would go on to this classroom. So know that that is available too. All right, and I think we already did the about, so I think I'm turning this back over to Mark.
Thank you, Julie. One thing that I think that Kirsten said, but I might have been when the phone was ringing for a second, with the posts, with those 3 dots, sometimes maybe there is something that you worked with and you want to bring it back to your students' attention. And so you might go back and move it to the top, and that way it's back at the top of the stream and students don't forget about it. And so that really works well. You're just bumping it up. And so don't forget about that if there's something that you want to bring back to their attention. Maybe it's something that had a due date and then you extended the due date and you want to move it up to help them to see that. Okay, we want to look at this from the student point of view. Again, I see the teachers up top, and I see what is due today on the left-hand side, which is really important. That I can look at the assignments on the left-hand side, and if I click View All, I get my to-do list, the things that I need to be focusing on. Looking at an assignment, I'm going to pull up an assignment here. This was assigned assignment number 5, using Google with students. We gave you a template there, and that allows you to that you can work in, and you can type your answer into the template. Notice that this one is view only. You can request some access to it. You can create your assignment. You can add from Google Drive, something that you've already created, a link or a file, and you can create from docs, slides, or sheets, or drawings, and then submit the assignment. Okay, it's telling me it's not done, and I can mark it as done, but I haven't submitted it yet. Now I want to switch computers here really fast. I'm going to quit my app share on this one and switch so that you can see, because there's a slight difference in how this operates when it's being done. I know some of you have iPads in your classrooms, and there's a new feature called the Annotate feature that I wanted to show you. Okay, what you're seeing, share from my iPad. And how many of you have, give me a green check if you have iPads in your classroom where you have students that use iPads, just out of curiosity. Okay, so there's at least a few of you. So I'm going to pull up assignment number 5. On my iPad. It tells me to complete the attached assignment and turn it in. I'm really not too concerned about what this assignment says. I just want to show you how it works on the iPad. If you look on the upper right hand corner, you have a couple of buttons. One is looks like the pop out. The other one is a pen. And again, this can only be done on the iPad. If I select that pen, it will allow me to annotate this file and then it will save it as a PDF. On the bottom, you see a couple of tools. If I choose that A, I can add a text box to my document. And I can type in a response. Perhaps you assign them something in a file and you want them to be able to highlight it and work on it with the highlighter. Let me make that a little bit bigger so you can see it better. I can highlight, I can change the color, and so you can have your students annotate using highlighters if that's part of your classroom instruction. There's a marker type pen. Maybe you want students to draw something, create a visual. I will simply do a smiley face with my poor artistic abilities. And a regular pen, where perhaps it's easier for students to simply to write a response, whereas they're annotating a text to write some notes. Whatever it might be that you want students to do using this annotate can be a powerful feature for them. So I've annotated this file that you sent me, this this Google Doc, and I'm all done with it. Now up in the upper right hand corner you see this rather, it's the archaic save symbol, but from back when we used the floppy disks. That's really important that I say that the student saves it, otherwise all their work is going to disappear. So I'm going to just hit the back button without saving it so we can see what happens. It gives the students a warning. It says, do you really want to leave without saving your changes? And you need to address this with your students, and because sometimes when these things pop up, we automatically just click on it without looking at it. No, I don't want to submit it to leave without saving. Go ahead and click the floppy disk and save it. And you see that now it's saving it as a PDF. And as it takes me back to the assignment, I have the original template that you can see. And I also have the PDF, which shows the work that I've done. I want to turn this in. It's going to ask me if I really want to turn it in. I'm going to turn that in. And I get the nice check mark telling me that that assignment is done. Notice it does say that I can unsubmit it. Maybe I realize that there's some work I want to do. I want to make some adjustments, some edits to my work. I can revise it and resubmit it if I need to. All right, now I'm going to switch back to the other computer. One moment.
Do you know if you can use voice dictation like you can with other apps?
I don't think that you can. I've not heard anything about using voice dictation with that.
Oh, I was going to say, I do have my students use voice dictation with Google Docs. So if they are editing a doc, and it works very, very well on the iPad, if they're going to turn in a Google Doc to me, my students will use the microphone to voice type their work. So it does work in some instances, but I don't think on the annotation section it does. So anyway, that's one way it can be used.
Thank you, Kirsten. Okay, so now I'm going to go back in as the teacher and look at the assignments. I see that 4 people have submitted their assignment. I can look at DLC student number 1, and I see the annotations that I wrote in on the iPad. Okay, and so I can assign it a score as Julie talked about, and I didn't do a very good job. I only got 5 out of 100. And I'm going to return that with a very nasty comment that I would never do in a real classroom. Okay, and that allows you to give that feedback and the immediate feedback to the students as soon as you have scored one of their assignments. And that is the student view. Now, as students submit assignments, they have the options of typing in their answers typically, but you can allow them to use other, to attach files, to add their Google Docs, or whatever it is that you are looking for. Workflow as a teacher. I think we've addressed that a little bit. You're going to go into the class stream, you're going to find the assignment, you're going to give the score and give it back to the student that way. So that's really important.
I know Kirsten went over the Google folder that's created in your Drive for Classroom. One of the things I would recommend is not deleting it. I know she showed how to access all the classrooms you make, but some people sometimes don't realize that Classroom creates a folder and then they delete it and it can cause you issues.
I really recommend that within your Drive, you don't do any work within that Classroom folder at all. If you're going to create docs, create them in other folders. You should have another folder for each of your classes. Don't do any work inside that Classroom folder. Let that just be for things that are created in Classroom. Pretend like that folder doesn't even exist. I don't see any need for people to go in there and to explore on that, because people do tend to mess things up a little bit. So that's what I suggest. Kirsten?
Yeah, and make sure you tell your students the same thing, because they get that same classroom folder in their Google Drive. And so I've had a little heart to heart with my students go, don't you touch that, it doesn't exist. Pretend it's not there, don't add anything to it, don't take anything out of it, just leave it alone. So you do have to make sure you make your students aware that that folder exists for them as well, because again, they have no idea it's there. Oh, what is this? I'm going to delete it. So make sure you give your students a little heads up.
Okay, Rose is asking for a little bit more information about how the Classroom ties into Google Calendar. Let me do another app share here. So if I go back into my About tab in my Classroom as the teacher, I see the calendar, and I can view this calendar in Classroom, or I can open it in Google Calendar. So I'm just going to view it in Classroom. Now this is just for this Google Classroom, and so I see that today there's an assignment that's due by 4:30. What is your first impression of Google Classroom for Education? Now I can go in and change my calendar settings in Classroom so that I can look at all of my assignments. And you see that it shows it on a week basis. I don't think I can change that to the month. Can I? No. So I can look at it on a Sunday through Saturday basis, and I don't have any other assignments listed in the calendar. Now, if I go to my actual calendar, my school district calendar, you can see that one of them is for this class. You see right here, I have the 11/29/2016 Google Classroom calendar. And so I can select to display only this calendar, and that's just going to show the items that are for that calendar. And so that's where it integrates. It does it automatically. I did not have to manually add this as a separate calendar, because I'm in this Google Classroom, which is an active classroom. The calendar automatically is there in my Google Calendars. Rose, that's about it. It's something that's good for students to see what they have due, and help them to use it as their agenda. We don't have to spend the thousands of dollars as a school that we would spend on agendas anymore, because everything should be integrated into your calendar. Rose, was there anything else that you were particularly looking for in that?
She wanted to know, if you change the assignment in Calendar, will it move it in Classroom?
Ooh, I don't know. Let's try. I'm going to edit this and change it to 5:30 p.m. Let's see what happens. It still says 4:30 in Classroom, so it looks like a no on that one, Rose.
Hey, Mark.
Okay.
Mark, try dragging it to a different day, though.
All right, I've moved it to tomorrow. Let's see what happens. It still shows for 4:30 today in my classroom calendar. So even though I might change it on my own personal calendar, it is not going to change in your classroom calendar, it appears. Good question, though. Let's give Kirsten and Julie a big round of applause. Thank you so much for your time, Kirsten and Julie. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful Tuesday and a phenomenal rest of the week. And this is our last webinar for 2016. We will have some more in 2017, starting up in January. Thank you very much.